Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:07 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. As we began the program, Donald Trump was giving remarks in Waukesha, Wisconsin. He's got a break from the courtroom chaos because it's Wednesday. Normally these Wednesdays, hump day, they don't have the trial proceedings, so he likes to use those days to get on the road and actually campaign. The left is trying to prevent him from that, which is why they have him tied up in a courtroom involving a crime they haven't even laid out for him. They haven't told him what crime he's guilty of as they pursue this trial. That's true. And here's Trump today in Wisconsin. A funny moment. I guess he was trying to sign a hat or something for someone. And he may have dropped the pen, or a pen had dropped, and he made a joke about how he can do this, but Biden can't. Take a listen.
He's in good shape. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Look at this guy.
The last one you signed got lost.
Oh, I'll sign this. Give me, I'll sign it. I'll sign it for you. Yeah. He asked me to sign it. I said, I got to make a speech here, Uncle Sam.
The guy's dressed as Uncle Sam. He popped his hat off and he handed it to Trump, and he said, "Would you sign it for me? Would you sign it?"
Good-looking Uncle Sam, though, huh? Give me a pen, somebody. Let's get Uncle Sam taken care of. Come on. Give me a pen. I got to get a pen. Let's go. Yeah, good. Just throw it up there.
That was a bad throw. Somebody threw it. It was an awful arm. It bounced off of something.
Give me a pen, please.
He stooped down. He picks it up.
You think Biden can bend down like that? I don't think. Where's Uncle Sam? Here's your pen back. Thank you. Uncle Sam. You got it, man.
Anyway, a nice moment. But he's in Waukesha. He's doing good there, and he's polling very well in Wisconsin, too. So smart move, and he gets on the road and he does that. Although I will say he's succeeded doing these courthouse remarks where he just steps up onto the microphone ahead of time, before the trial proceedings and after them, and he announces, "Hey, he's getting a raw deal here. That our election system is under attack by these Democrats. This is a totally rigged process." Totally unfair what's happening to him. And people are responding very favorably to Trump. And you see the support only growing. I think the left is getting so much more than they bargained for here as they use the power, the tools at their disposal in tyrannical ways. And people are detecting that. So good for him and good for the country. I think that's the lesson that's being taken away from all of this. Over at National Review, Andrew McCarthy's got an interesting piece today, as he so often does. He says what Alvin Bragg is doing right now is completely unconstitutional. Completely. Violations of both the United States as well as the New York State Constitution, he points out. So first and foremost, he says that this is a violation of the U.S. Constitution. The Fifth Amendment. It violates his Fifth Amendment rights, which requires a felony charge to be spelled out in an indictment whose criminal elements have been established by probable cause to the satisfaction of a grand jury. But additionally, he says that it's a violation of the New York State Constitution, the New York State Constitution, including under Article 3, Section 16, which says the following: no act shall be passed which shall provide that any existing law or any part thereof shall be made or deemed a part of said act, or which shall enact that any existing law or part thereof shall be applicable, except by inserting it in such act. Now, that language sounds confusing, but to Andy McCarthy's trained ear and eye, he's telling us what that means is you can't charge Trump with some ambiguous law. Like, it's not even laid out. They don't even have it laid out in the court. This is unconstitutional that he be slapped with charges. He's not even told what he's guilty of. For more on this, I want to bring in Mike Davis now. He's the founder and president of the Article 3 Project, and he's been following all of this very closely. He's a lawyer. Mike, good to have you with us.
Thank Thank you for having me.
So, Mike, on top of all the other indignities involved here, Andy McCarthy's assessment is that this is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional both as a matter of the federal constitution as well as the state constitution of New York. Do you agree?
I do agree. In order to pass constitutional muster, a criminal charge must provide fair notice to the defendants before the trial so the defendant can prepare his defense at trial. And the problem is that they have not, the Alvin Bragg has not done this in this case. The legal theory is still up in the air, and we are in week 3 of this trial.
Yeah, as Andy writes today, Trump is charged with, not with a conspiracy, but with 34 substantive felony violations of a New York statute that makes it a crime to falsify business records with the fraudulent intent to conceal, quote, another crime. But nobody's told Trump what the other crime is. How is that even possible? How could an American be in a courtroom without being told what the crime is?
Well, we all know what Trump's crime is for these Democrats, and that is that he decided to run for president. And so the Democrats, they're going to do everything they can to stop him, and they don't care if this violates the due process clause of the U.S. Constitution or the due process clause of the New York Constitution. For them, the ends justify the means, and their entire goal, and they've made that very clear throughout this criminal trial, all of this lawfare and election interference, their entire goal is to label Trump a felon and put him in prison before November 5th, 2024, because they fear American voters.
So, and not only are they trampling his Fifth Amendment rights, they're also very much trampling on his First Amendment rights. He's not allowed to defend himself. You and I have talked about this, Mike. And that includes, he's not slandering anybody. When he just points out the construction of the case, he's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to mention that a Department of Justice attorney by the name of Matthew Colangelo, number 3 at the Department of Justice, has left that job and has now joined the Alvin Bragg hit job against Trump. He can't mention Matthew Colangelo's name. Have you ever seen a gag order that expansive in any case other than with Trump?
No, and remember, gag orders are put in place to protect criminal defendants, not to protect the government. The whole point of a gag order is a limited time, place, and manner restriction on others' First Amendment rights so you can protect the criminal defendant's constitutional rights in a very limited manner during a very limited time of his trial. And these Democrat judges and prosecutors and operatives have turned the Constitution on its head. They started to do this under Roger Stone, where they put a gag order on a criminal defendant there. I mean, if there's anyone in America who must have the constitutional right to speak out against the judge, the prosecutor, their stabs, the witnesses, their biases, and the process, it is a criminal defendant going through a criminal process.
Well, the other piece here is that not only is Trump gagged, his entire campaign is gagged. So representatives for Donald Trump's presidential campaign are not, at least according to their legal understanding of what's going on here, they're not allowed to even discuss Joe Biden's involvement in this case in New York. They can't mention Matthew Colangelo in the Biden Department of Justice. They can't even bring it up. I just talked to Caroline Levitt on my program this past week, and she said, I'm sorry, that gentleman you just mentioned, I can't discuss him because of the judge's gag order. He's interfering in an election, Mike Davis.
That's absolutely right. And another thing that this Juan Merchan, this Manhattan Democrat judge who donated to Biden in 2020 and donated to another anti-Trump cause, the other person he won't allow anyone to talk about in Trump world is that his adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, is a leading Democrat fundraiser and consultant for Biden, for Kamala Harris, for Adam Schiff, many Democrats, and she's actually raising money on this case. She's raising money on her father's unprecedented trial of a former president who happens to be the leading presidential candidate. She's raising tens of millions of dollars off of this. And even a former federal Clinton judge in the Southern District of New York went on Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th, 2024, and said under New York statute, because Judge Juan Merchan's daughter is raising money off this case, he must recuse under New York statute. New York statute goes out 6 degrees of separation. A daughter is in your first degree of separation. Merchan clearly has to recuse. When Trump raises this evidence of bias, how does Judge Merchan respond? he imposes a broader, more unconstitutional, more illegal gag order on Trump. This is un-American, what they're doing. This is actually a criminal conspiracy against rights, a very serious federal civil rights criminal violation by this Soros-funded Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, by Colangelo, and by Mershon. This is a civil rights violation. This 18 U.S.C. 241, this is a clear civil rights violation. And frankly, in the next, when Trump's back in office, his Justice Department should open a criminal probe on this.
This led to yesterday a deadline imposed on Donald Trump. The judge alleges that by sharing a number of articles about the case on Truth Social, that Donald Trump had violated the gag order, and he forced him to take down, I believe, 9 different posts and imposed a $9,000 fine on Donald Trump. He claimed in his order that he's hemmed in by New York state law. I guess in this one case, he's following New York state law. And he says he can't impose any higher fines, $1,000 a piece, but he acknowledges that Donald Trump is very rich and this is nothing to him. $9,000 is a drop in the bucket. And he threatened, he said, to put Trump in jail if he continues to, quote, violate the gag order. And I wonder what you think about what Trump's strategy should be in the face of this, Mike Davis, because I've been sitting here, it's easy for me to say. It's not me. It's Donald Trump's freedom on the line. But I do wonder if there's some wisdom in saying, like, daring the judge to throw him in jail. You want to do that? You want to turn me into a political prisoner? Go for it.
I mean, I do. I dare this judge to put Trump in jail. I mean, I'm not the one going in jail, so Trump would probably tell me to shut up. But I dare Judge Mershon to put Trump in jail. You will turn Trump into Nelson Mandela. He will win. Instead of winning by like 1 or 2 points in November, he's going to win by like 4 or 5 points if they put him in jail. This would be politically fantastic. Legally, it's not so fun for Trump if he has to go sit in a jail. But remember what this judge is saying, that he's ruling for the first time that if someone retweets or retruths or reposts something someone else wrote, including news stories, and had no commentary whatsoever, that for the first time in America, this judge is saying that could be contempt of court. But then the judge says it's not in every instance where you retweet and repost. It's the context, right? And that is a illegal prior restraint on free speech. It's an unconstitutional prior restraint on free speech. It's both overly broad and vague. It is a clear violation of the First Amendment.
Mike, is it possible that some higher court or any outside authority can intercept this before it keeps going on? That is, I will say, the substance. That's the most common phone call I get when we talk about these violations. People want to know, is there any chance that Trump can redress the grievances here?
Well, it depends on what these New York courts do. If they actually want to be real courts or if they just want to be Democrat activists in robes in a banana republic. President Trump has already filed what's called an Article 87 challenge in the appellate division in New York. They're currently considering that case. They've been dragging their feet for a couple of weeks now. I hope Trump updates that Article 87 petition with the appellate division soon, hopefully within the next few days. And if the New York appellate courts let this happen, they are going to destroy due process and constitutional rights to due process and your free speech rights in New York if they allow this to happen. Because remember, if they can do this to a billionaire, former and likely future president of the United States, just imagine what they'll do to the rest of us. But I am very serious about this for these Democrat prosecutors and Democrat witnesses and Democrat judges and Democrat operatives who are running this obvious lawfare and election interference, that come January 20th, 2025, there has to be a criminal probe by the Trump 47 Justice Department. This is an obvious conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. 241, and there must be the most severe legal, political, and financial consequences. We have to end this lawfare and election interference. This is republic ending, and if you don't give these leftists a very strong medicine here, this will keep going over and over and over. We have to nip this in the bud now by giving them severe consequences in January.
Yeah. All right. Mike Davis, founder and president of the Article 3 Project. Thank you, sir, as always. Good to talk to you today.
Thank you.
5:21 now. WMAL, traffic and weather. When it comes to the Biden administration's involvement in this crazy trial in New York, Congressman Jim Jordan has announced an investigation now into the links between the DOJ and Alvin Bragg. Congressman Jim Jordan sending a letter yesterday to Attorney General Merrick Garland regarding Matthew Colangelo, the man who the Trump campaign is not allowed to mention, the lead prosecutor in that Manhattan criminal case. Jordan is requesting all documents and communications from Colangelo's tenure at the Biden Department of Justice. I just want to remind people, Colangelo was also working for Letitia James. He also worked to pursue fining Trump hundreds of millions of dollars in a case that involved no victims at all. And he was also involved in stopping the United States Census from assessing whether or not people are here in the country illegally. This man is not on the side of decency. He's not on the side of the United States. And here he is trying to take down Trump. Jim Jordan seeking answers. Boy, I hope he gets some. Quickly. I think the Biden DOJ is going to resist that. They like to do that. Hey, coming up, speaking of the Biden DOJ, I've got some breaking news for you on the woman who heads Biden's, quote, civil rights division. They're not interested in civil rights over there. It turns out she stabbed someone and kept that from the United States Senate. That's ahead. Good afternoon to you. 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. Mary Margaret Olohan, one of the great reporters of our time over at the Daily Signal, a Heritage Foundation production. Interesting piece this week, published yesterday, about the head of the Civil Rights Division under Joe Biden at the United States Department of Justice, a woman called Kristen Clark. She was confirmed by the Senate, unfortunately, and when she was testifying, she testified that she was never arrested. Ever. Was never arrested. Mary Margaret has figured out that's not true. Well, yes, she was. And it involves something very violent. Mary Margaret reporting yesterday, before becoming one of the Justice Department's top leaders, Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark was allegedly involved in a violent domestic dispute. According to court documents, records, and text messages. An incident that ended in her arrest and was ultimately expunged. During her Senate confirmation, Clark specifically denied ever having been arrested for or accused of committing a violent crime. Okay, look, let me just pause on the basics here. If you have something expunged, yeah, it's not part of your official record. But if you are asked under sworn testimony, have you ever been arrested? The answer to that question is binary. Yes or no. Have you ever been arrested or accused of committing a violent crime? And the answer to that is quite obviously yes, according to what Mary Margaret has dug up. Kristen Clark was nominated, that is, by President-elect Joe Biden on January 7th, 2021, and later confirmed by the U.S. Senate on May 25th, to lead the DOJ's crown jewel, as former Attorney General Eric Holder described, the Civil Rights Division. Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris celebrated Clark as the first black woman to head the Civil Rights Division, promising she would focus on fighting voter suppression and hate crimes, quote, across the country. During her confirmation, Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican, asked then-nominee Clark, quote, since becoming a legal adult, have you ever been arrested for or accused of committing a violent crime against any person? No, she responded. Messages, as well as records obtained and authenticated by the Daily Signal, indicate that Clark may have been less than forthcoming with this statement. Clark's ex-husband, Reginald Avery, alleged to the American Accountability Foundation's Tom Jones in 2021 that Clark attacked him with a knife, deeply slicing his finger to the bone on the night of July 4th, 2006, while they were married and living in Maryland. According to messages and documents reviewed by the Daily Signal, police arrested Clark that night. She didn't respond to requests for comment for this story. Court records obtained by the Daily Signal show that a criminal case against Clark was initiated in the District Court of Maryland for Prince George's County. But on October 17th, 2006, the Maryland State Attorney entered a request of, I can't even say this, it's a Latin legal phrase, noye prosecchi, I don't know how to say it, but in the case, which effectively dismissed the charge without trial. For the attorneys in the audience, stop laughing at me. Approximately a year and a half later, Clark sought an order for expungement of police and court records in the same case. A document obtained by the Daily Signal shows that the district court granted that order in January of 2008. The document specifically orders expungement of police records pertaining to Clark's arrest, detention, or confinement on or about July 5th, 2006 by a law enforcement officer of the Prince George's County Police. Okay. So here you go. This happened, in other words, and the court record was covered up. And then Kristen Clark, under sworn testimony, said, no, it never happened. And that brings us to today. There's some spin going on here, an effort to try and justify all of this. CNN has a report today, published right near the beginning of our program, 3:05, just after we got on the air. Headline, exclusive, DOJ civil rights leader says she was a victim of abuse in extraordinary statement. The writer on this piece is called Hannah Rabinowitz. The leader of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, Kristen Clark, said in an extraordinary personal statement shared with CNN, notice it was CNN, not the Daily Signal, not the reporter who broke the story, not the person who handled it responsibly. No, they went to CNN for a spin job. Kristen Clark shared with CNN that she was a victim of years-long domestic abuse and chose not to disclose an expunged arrest record from that period during the Senate confirmation process. You see, you can just make it up as you go along. Oh, I don't have to follow the law on this. Clark's, if you're a Democrat, Clark's now expunged arrest, which reportedly occurred during a domestic dispute, quickly became a cause celeb among right-wing media and lawmakers who claimed she lied during her 2021 Senate confirmation hearing, with some calling for her resignation. So in the second paragraph, we arrive immediately at the goal of this piece, which is to accuse Republicans of pouncing. Republicans have made it a, quote, cause celeb who claim she lied. She lied. We know that. We've got her dead to rights here. She lied about this. Clark wrote in a statement Wednesday, of course giving to CNN, nearly 2 decades ago, I was subjected to years-long abuse and domestic violence at the hands of my ex-husband. This was a terrorizing and traumatizing period that I have sought to put behind me to promote my personal health, healing, and well-being. The physical and emotional scars, the emotional abuse and exploitation, and the lying are things that no woman or mother should ever have to endure, she said. Okay, but wait a second. Hold up. You get asked a question under sworn testimony. This was apparently done in the form of writing. This is a written questionnaire from Tom Cotton. You still have to tell the truth. You have a legal obligation to tell the truth. When she was asked whether or not she'd ever been arrested or accused of committing a violent crime against any person, she had driven a knife through a man's hand to the bone. The answer, and then was arrested for it. The answer to that is yes. And if you'd like to offer explanation, by all means, explain away. It was an act of self-defense. He was coming at me. I defended myself. I was arrested. I shouldn't have been. But I can explain why this occurred. That none of that happened. Instead, she lied. She said no. When given the option to speak about such traumatic incidents in my life, I have chosen not to, Clark wrote. Oh, this is her. I can just decide. If you notice, this is like the most left-wing attitude ever. I just chose not to follow that particular law. And I did it because I'm living my truth. And I don't have to. And I'm the victim here, so stop hassling me. I didn't believe during my confirmation process, and I don't believe now that I was obligated to share a fully expunged matter from my past, she says. Senator Mike Lee criticized Clark after the expunged arrest was reported by the Daily Signal and picked up by other outlets. The Utah Republican saying on X, quote, she lied under oath during her confirmation proceedings and should resign. While it's unclear what happened in Clark's case, court records can be expunged in a number of circumstances. CNN goes on and on and on. Now, notice what CNN didn't tell us. There's a couple of things, but I'll lay out the two that jump immediately to mind. One, they never cite the Daily Signal. They never for a moment credit the outlet that broke this story, which is a professional obligation, a professional courtesy to do in the realm of journalism, if that's what you're practicing. Cite the place you got it from. They didn't do that. Instead, they took a statement from a government official designed to spin away a damaging news story that told the truth about the status of that government official's lies in a Senate confirmation hearing. So CNN carrying water for a Biden Department of Justice official who lied to the United States Senate, which is the American people. She lied. Point number 2, what else is not mentioned in this piece? A knife being driven through a man's hand to the bone. It's never mentioned in the CNN piece at all. They just say, well, there was something that happened, but that's not important. The point is, I'm being treated unfairly, and right-wing media is leading the charge. That's the piece here. So I have to go back to the Daily Signal today for the real story as they pick up what CNN dropped and they explain what happened. Here's Mary Margaret today. DOJ's Kristen Clark confirms she did not disclose arrest, alleges domestic abuse. The Justice Department's Kristen Clark confirmed on Wednesday today that she did not disclose an arrest and expungement during her nomination to the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, alleging that she was the victim of domestic abuse. The Daily Signal reported Tuesday evening, and they go on to summarize what happened to her now ex-husband, in which he alleged that she sliced his finger to the bone with a knife, they say. So that's in the second paragraph. So compare, the CNN second paragraph is, the right is so mean to Kristen Clark. The Daily Signal second paragraph is, there was a knife driven through a man's hand by a Biden official. Which one is more useful, news-wise? Which one actually tells you something? The Daily Signal has repeatedly reached out to Clark about the incident since February with no response. Since February. So Mary Margaret was undertaking the reporting on this story for months. They've been reaching out to her. No response. In a statement to CNN, she addressed the matter, saying she wasn't required to disclose the expungement. She also told CNN she was subjected to years-long abuse and domestic violence at the hands of her ex-husband. Clark has not responded. I'm skipping past all of Clark's quote again that you already heard that she gave to CNN. Clark has not responded to requests for comment from the Daily Signal. Her ex-husband, Reginald Avery, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. CNN's report, they note as well here, didn't include Avery's allegations that Clark sliced his finger with a knife on the night of July 4th, 2006. The CNN report also does not link to the Daily Signal's reporting. I'm sorry, there you go. They noticed it too. 1, 2, no knife attack, no link to the Daily Signal. I was seeing another woman. Avery shared in a May of 2021 text message exchange with the American Accountability Foundation's Tom Jones. Quote, she was angry. She attacked me with a knife. I instinctively grabbed it. As I said earlier, I'm not blameless, he says. That's the story. That's what happened. She went to jail. Now, okay, you never know. I don't know this guy. He could be lying. But remember, 3 sides to every story. His side, her side, the truth. This guy says, I cheated on her. She caught me. She was angry at me. I was seeing another woman. She stabbed me through the hand, and then she went to jail for it. Now, I don't know. I've watched enough episodes of Cops. When the cops show up at a house and there's a domestic dispute between a man and a woman, if there's even a tiny bit of evidence that the man did anything resembling physical violence, don't the cops usually take the guy into custody? Isn't that how that works? Almost always, right? Almost always. She apparently stabbed him through the hand, and the cops show up, and they decide, yeah, you're the one we're taking. Now, I don't know what to read into that other than it kind of sounds like she's the guilty party here. Who knows? Prince George's County Police Department showed that the department was called on 9 different occasions by someone at their Upper Marlboro, Maryland household between May of 2003 and December of 2007. 7 of those calls were for a threat or some type of domestic violence, but most were cleared without a report. That July 4th, 2006 call was made by Mr. Reginald. The husband made the phone call, and accompanied by a 760 code, according to a mainframe printout from PG County. That 760 code is the department's clearance code for arrest. The PG County Police Department confirmed. The DOJ official's ex-husband also shared with Jones that on the night of the incident, he called 911 due to his injury, and the cops came because his finger was cut off. His finger was cut off. Avery clarified to the Daily Signal that the finger was sliced to the bone, not cut off. Police allegedly decided to arrest Clark, and Avery said he went to the emergency room in Bowie, Maryland for the injury. He doesn't have photos of it. Not surprising. I don't usually take pictures of my injuries. I sliced my finger open a year ago. I was trying to clean windows on the side of my house. I had a pole with a big razor blade on the end of the pole. I was trying to scrape some like old paint off the window. And while I was affixing the razor blade to the end of the long pole, I drove it through my finger by accident. It was awful. It was awful. And I went to I wrapped it up in a bunch of gauze and I went to the local urgent care. They stitched me up. They glued me up, actually. They didn't put stitches. They had this glue. They said, it's going to be hard to stitch it. Let's glue it. I didn't take pictures of it. I didn't memorialize the injury. I just have a scar that looks weird on my finger. So you can see it if you ever meet me. But that's it. That's it. This guy did not take photos. Not surprising. He doesn't have photos of the injury. During her nomination, Republican Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, of course, asked Clark about this. She responded no in the written questionnaire. She lied to the United States Senate. That's it. That's it. As Rachel Bovard points out on X, she was asked by the Senate if she was ever arrested, full stop, and she said no. In normal people world, we call that lying. The lawyers call it perjuring yourself. So CNN, the reporter on the CNN piece is, again, Hannah Rabinowitz. I saw Mary Margaret asked her, why didn't you link to my reporting in this? Why didn't you put a single link? We didn't link to the Daily Signal at all. Hannah Rabinowitz has not responded to that. She's just pretending like she hasn't seen it, I guess. But she's being used by Democrats, and Kristen Clark lied to the Senate. If only we lived in a world with consequences. Well, we don't, unfortunately. The best we can do is tell you the truth.